Have you ever experienced a piece of media that created such strong emotions in you that you will never forget it? Maybe it was terror, or perhaps even joy. No matter what emotion or feeling it stirred in you, you will always remember it. It could have been the shock from the hallway scene in The Shining, the inspiration from Deku finally cleaning that beach, or even a strong urge to eat a potato chip after watching Light Yagami use his Death Note. For me, no moment has impacted me quite like episode 85 of Hunter x Hunter 2011. I was staying the night on my brother's couch, and I decided I would watch an episode of Hunter x Hunter before bed. I was expecting to have a sweet, relaxing 22 minutes before I fell asleep, to quickly visit Gon and Killua's journey before I took on an early morning the next day. What I wasn't expecting was for brilliant long-term storytelling to begin to pay off in a terrifying, anxiety-ridden 22-minute episode. So today, I want to discuss how this episode was able to produce such a strong reaction in me, and why I think it's the perfect episode. And of course, spoilers for all of Hunter x Hunter 2011 ahead. Episode 85 takes place 9 episodes into the Chimera Ant arc. This arc is centered around the Chimera Ants, who have evolved to resemble something closer to a human than an ant. The ants were discovered by the hunter Kite, and along with meeting Gon and Killua, he brings them on a journey to investigate the ants and try to prevent the Ant King from being born. This episode takes place after they have infiltrated the country where the ant's nest lies, and they've already trounced many of the weaker Chimera ants. At this time, the first royal guard, Neferpito, or Pito for short, is introduced as an incredibly influential figure in the ants' hierarchy. The episode is structured in 3 acts with a setup, conflict, and resolution. What is unusual about this episode is the length of each act. Act 1 lasts for 9 minutes, taking up about 40% of the runtime. Act 2 only lasts about 2 minutes, taking up 9% of the runtime. And lastly, Act 3 lasts for 11 minutes, totaling at 50% of the runtime. In a typical story, the longest act would be Act 2, or the conflict. Usually the most exciting and engaging story beats arise from the conflict, but in this episode, it's only at most around 10% of the runtime. To explore why this unusual choice works so well, we need to look at each act individually. Act 1 is straightforward plot-wise, with Kite, Gon, and Killua slowly tracking Chimera ants to find their nest. It is a calm start to the episode, as the characters reminisce about their journey so far and identify how strong Kite is and how much stronger they will need to become on this journey. This setup creates a sense that you know what's going to happen. We feel like Gon and Killua will slowly fight stronger and stronger Chimera ants until they can win and save the day with no real losses. This is juxtaposed between Pito and other Chimera ants at the nest. The ants are going through a painful method to unlock their nen so they can become stronger. The episode also makes immediate parallels to Kite and Pito's strength. Pito wonders how it must feel to have an ordinary level of strength.
Must be tough being ordinary. Going through all this trouble just to become powerful.
And Gon and Killua talk about how Kite might be stronger than a nen master.
Man, that's amazing. He tracked him this whole time and never lost them once.
He said that his N covers a radius of 45 meters.
I've heard that the ones called Nen Masters can handle around 50 meters. I'm guessing that Kite's nearly there. Actually, he's kept it up for a whole night, so he's probably stronger.
This is an immediate parallel between these two characters, but because of the relaxed nature of these scenes, it feels like we are a long way away from any real conflict. My original thought when watching the first act of the episode was noting how standard it was. Peter was set up as this villain that Gon and Killua would rise to beat through the guidance of Kite. The king would most certainly be born, but our heroes or even another hunter would certainly defeat them. Through the show's first few arcs, Hunter x Hunter consistently undercut tropes of shonen storytelling. However, the previous arc, Greed Island, followed the more typical shonen formula. Thus, I thought the first act was setting up Gon and Killua to reach their true potential and follow the traditional story structure. But in the middle of the episode, I was proven dead wrong. Here is a short but shocking scene that makes the episode go from standard to one of the only moments in a TV show that left me genuinely terrified.
Get away!
The scene opens the second act, and is the precise moment when the Chimera Ant arc goes from a classic feeling shonen story to something far more complex and dark. The switch between Acts 1 and 2 comes out of nowhere as Peto senses our heroes well in the distance and decides to test her strength. Kite then senses her power and yells at Gon and Killua to run, which leaves the audience confused and stunned. Then she strikes, taking Kite's arm off with one single blow. This is an incredibly important moment because each of the characters' reactions in that instant further develops them and gives us a strong sense of who they are. So far in the series, Gon has never backed down from a fight and has gone to great lengths to try and win. So when an unexpected monster flies out of nowhere, Gon feels like he has no choice but to fight. So he charges up his Nen in the face of death. Killua forces Gon to run away because of his tendency to run if his opponent shows strength that is even close to matching his. This is something that Killua and Gon will continue to struggle with throughout the arc. Peto's reckless pursuit of our heroes shows her animalistic nature. Kite's calm and collected demeanor shines as he stands in the field with only one arm ready to fight. It was this moment that provoked such strong feelings of terror in me. The setup from the first act of the episode made me feel comfortable, like I knew for sure what was coming next. And with one single jump, Peto destroyed that comfort for both the protagonists and myself. The look Peto gives Gon and Killua shook me to my core and created feelings of anxiety as well as a growing nervousness that our heroes would die. That is the big moment of the episode that I will always remember, but the third act still does a lot to make this episode stand out. Togashi decides not to show the fight between Peto and Kite, instead choosing to follow Killua and his thoughts as he carries an unconscious Gon to safety. If this were a typical shonen anime, we would certainly get to see these two powerful characters face off. But Hunter x Hunter holds back from that temptation. We are left waiting for 11 minutes to find out if Kite won the fight or not. Killua, a character that has fought constantly with anxiety, is the focus instead of Gon. We see all of Killua's doubts and fears on display, especially when 3 stronger, more qualified hunters take the task of fighting the Chimera ants. While all of this is going on in the back of our heads, we can't stop thinking if Kite survived. The constant anxiety in the viewer doesn't go away for the rest of the episode. The episode ends with hope for Gon and Killua as they have an opportunity to revamp their strength and fight again. They still believe that Kite is alive and that they need to go back and find him. But after we get the hopeful ending to an episode drowning in sorrow, we are given the final scene. The episode ends heartbreakingly as we see Pito with Kite's head in her lap. Our fears for the last 11 minutes are brought to the forefront, and the groundwork is laid for more powerful and shocking moments to occur later in the arc. The result is an episode that breaks down the conventions of its genre to create emotions that the genre doesn't typically provoke. It is an episode that relies not on action, but on storytelling beats to develop tension, shock, and mystery. The episode uses our preconceived notions of what is going to happen to manipulate the story and plot structure. This episode embodies everything I love about Hunter x Hunter 2011. Its ability to trust in the story that it is telling, and genuinely understand audience expectations. To me, this episode has no flaws and pushes the boundaries for what types of stories we can tell. This episode evoked feelings that no other show has been able to do. And nothing has scared me more than this. It's for these reasons why episode 85, Light and Darkness, is a perfect episode.